Welcome to SOS for Your Life, Emergency Wisdom for Everyday Life. I'm your host, Susie St. Angelo, and thanks for being here. Today's episode is called Sketching a Better Life, the Magic of Art Therapy. I'll be talking to Susan Day, an art therapist, facilitator, and practitioner, and author, and now a new app creator. She facilitates creative art sessions in groups and works with people online, and she has authored several books about mindful art therapy. I think you'll be really interested to listen in and see how she helps others. You know, this podcast is for you if you want to change something and you don't know what to do or how to do it. Maybe it's your career, your health, or another aspect of your life. And maybe you're thinking at this stage or age, can I do this? Or maybe you're one of those people who's caught in analysis paralysis. I know, I see you. I used to feel that same way. But please know you might find a little tidbit of information that can help you move the needle along and lead to a healthier journey. You can find this podcast on YouTube, Spotify, iHeart, Apple, and Amazon Podcasts. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And now let's get into today's episode and meet my guest, Susan Day. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Susie. How are you?
Great. Thank you for joining SOS for Your Life, Emergency Wisdom for Everyday Life. I'm so glad to have you today and to learn more about what you do. So without further ado, let's talk a little bit about what you do and how you got into it.
Oh, well, I'm a mindful art therapist. I'm from Australia, as you can tell probably from the accent. So I pretty much work, it's interesting because I either work with older women or preteens. So I'm kind of at, the different kind of age groups that are like the different ends of the spectrum, as it were. Predominantly I work, I guess, overall about building emotional resilience. And that's that ability to bounce back after a tragedy or any kind of setback. And I do it through art. I do it through, not creating wonderful masterpieces, but, just through making marks on paper sometimes or, experimenting with different kinds of materials and incorporating mindfulness in that as well. So that ability to take a lovely deep breath and just center yourself and just chill out.
And so how did you get into art therapy? Do you have an art background?
Yeah, I do. Well, I've been drawing since I was little. I often talk about as a species, we've been drawing on walls or caves, as it were, for a very long time before we could talk, before we could write. We were just scribbling away, telling our story. But personally, I've always been drawn to art. I've always been drawn to colouring and that sort of thing. And I must have been about 10 years ago now, because I've skipped a bit. I've got an English background. I'm a qualified English teacher. And I've got a double majors and all sorts of interesting things. And a lady asked me to edit her thesis, and it was about art therapy. And for me, it was like, oh my gosh, this is actually a thing. You can do this. You know what it's, and it really, at the time I was studying mindfulness, and it really sort of worked for me. It just, all the bells rang, and I thought, gosh, this is important stuff predominantly because sometimes we just don't have the words. And it's to explain our trauma or to really articulate how we feel. And this is, of course, true very much of children who, we don't, and sometimes we just can't explain to a therapist in traditional talk therapy what's really happened or what's really going on. And art therapy kind of skips that bit. It skips the part where you need to feel confident. You need to trust your therapist. It's often done alongside normal talk therapy, not as a replacement so much. But yeah, so it's just that ability where your subconscious is kind of screaming, help me, let's work this out. And, we don't have the language, or we don't have that ability to explain. Whereas you can sit down with somebody, give them some coloured pencils or markers, and watch what they do. Might have a quick chat about something, and then they start to make lines on the page, and all sorts of things are revealed, and it can be wonderfully joyful, but and of course very cathartic, yeah, as well.
Mhm. Well, and as I listen to you talk, so many questions. You mentioned that you can do art therapy in conjunction with talk therapy. And it's really interesting how there's lots of different therapy out there. There's dog therapy. I've been a part of a dog therapy non-for-profit that kids read to dogs, and that petting the dog helps improve their confidence and their reading levels. Or, they take the dogs to grieving centers or retirement communities, and it just cheers people up. But there's all different types. I've interviewed someone who's a hypnotherapist. So what you're saying is you can do other forms of therapy in addition to art therapy, as a form of your rehabilitation.
That's right. Yeah. So I used to be in the to children, the reading to dogs program. In my former border collie. Um, yeah, animals have an extraordinary power to help us feel centered and relaxed. A friend of mine is actually just starting a business with miniature horses. They're not ponies. They're like little tiny miniature, as big as my border collie, and you just as cute as buttons. And yeah, people just relate to that, and that's it's all part of our journey and our healing, and it's just amazing. I love sound therapy. That's another one of my favorites too.
Yes, I have done sound therapy. That's been wonderful. Um, what do you think are some common misconceptions about art therapy?
Well, probably the first one is probably people will say to me, "Well, I'm not artistic," and I'll say, "Well, you don't need to be. You need to just be able to hold a pencil or a pen." Because we're not creating works of art. We're not putting something you might even hang on the wall. There, in my books, and I have an art therapy app that's just been released. There are some exercises where you're actually encouraged to destroy the piece when it's finished, which sounds a little bit crazy, but it's the journey, and it's once you've once you've completed a piece, or you feel like you've done the exercise, as it were, you don't need that. You don't need. Some people keep a record, and that's another important process as well. But yeah, it's not about being artistic at all. And even like I'm an artist, but even some of the things I produce, I'm like, gosh, that just looks like rubbish. That just looks like scribble on the page. But it might be me just working through something, something that's happened that I feel like I don't want it to sit inside me. I don't want it to be a trauma. So I'll work it through with pencils and paints and things.
You know what I think about too? I think about doodling and the art of doodling. And whether it's as a child or you're sitting through, maybe you're sitting in college and you're bored with a lecture, or maybe you're on the phone with someone and you're just kind of doodling as you listen to the conversation. And I wonder if that's like art therapy.
Oh, yeah, very much so. Yeah, doodling's a wonderful practice. It actually improves your focus and your concentration, which is really interesting. And it also allows you to to keep your hands busy, as it were. So there's people that tap or click pens. It stops that. It again, it brings your focus down, and your mind will might be thinking about what you're drawing, but your brain's working and listening as well. So, like you say, at college, sitting in lectures, even sitting in meetings, it's really quite valuable. Even it's interesting, actually. Yeah,
So it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. I mean,
I think so.
I
Yeah,
don't want to label things good or bad, but in essence, it's a helpful thing. Let's put it that way.
very good. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So, do you ever have someone who comes to you reluctantly? Maybe the preteen is coming with a parent, and they don't want to be there, or maybe that older woman that said, "Well, someone said I should be here, so I'm gonna come and try this out, but I don't." really want to be here. Do you have reluctant people? And if you do, how do you deal with that?
Oh, not so much the preteens because obviously they've got to buy into the idea. They think they're doing art. That's probably that we need to get over that first hurdle is, well, this is not an art class. But yeah, I run a local community group in one of our houses. We call them houses here. And there's one lady that used to come. She came voluntarily every week, and she would go, "Why am I doing this for? I don't want to do it." And I'd be going, "But it's just a paid class. You don't have to come." And she'd go, "Oh, all right then, I'll give it a go." And she mumbled and grumbled her way through, I reckon, the first 2 months. And I used to think, why did she come?
If she's grumbling about it, yeah, I wondered that too.
Yeah, but she comes and she is now one of my biggest advocates. She will everything we put online. She shares. She talks about it. We have this. I have this rule in my art class that you're not allowed to use a grey lead pencil to sketch or mark something out. And they were all like, "Oh no, we need to do this." And I said, "No, you need to let go of this. This notion that that you need to mark or plan, because this is not an art class. This is not anything else like craft. Like a lot of craft work, you've obviously got to plan it out, and you might sketch out ideas, but in art therapy, we don't do that." And I actually said to them yesterday, when I stopped using a grey lead pencil was the day that my artistic skills and my creativity went through the roof, because I let go of these constraints that we kind of embedded in us, that we need to, I need to make I went, no, no, no. They kind of laugh. They say, "Oh, we wait for you to leave the room." Use a pencil. But yeah, I used to just go, "Oh, well, we're doing it to do this." Well, she would say sometimes, "Oh, I don't want to do it." And I'm like, "Okay." I just said, "Okay," and just kept going with the class. But yeah, like I said, I think for me, it was just a matter of patience. And I just thought, okay. And I just reformed what I was doing and and just looked at and made sure that I clearly articulated why I think this activity is a good one, even if it's just to bring some joy into your heart. Sometimes that's all all you really need to do. A little bit of rush of dopamine does you the world of good. So yeah, there's plenty of people like that in the world.
So I would guess that while you have these structured in-person and online classes that are multiple classes that have some structure, within that is some unstructured, obviously, creativity. But can you tell when you have someone that they're going to need multiple sessions, or is it, how do you know how long you need to be in an art therapy program?
That's really interesting because and it's a really good question because obviously you might work on. I always think it's a little bit like unwrapping an onion. Like you don't need to get really deep and meaningful on your first session. You might just be frustrated because you can't afford to pay for your car, or or somebody was rude to you in the supermarket yesterday, or that sort of thing, and you might go, "Oh, okay, let's do that," and you work down. It depends on the individual whether they actually want to work down to the nut of perhaps something that's been happening for years. But what I always try to do, even from the get-go, is give them the skills, give them something they can use at home, something they can use at work to begin to, de-stress, process the emotions, begin that sort of process of self-awareness, and also, just building up that emotional resilience. Yeah.
So it's, art therapy is a lot like breath work. It's a lot like meditation, yoga. It is being mindful and being present, and paying attention to yourself and how you're feeling, and sometimes it's digging up some things that have been pushed down for a long time.
Oh yes, very much so. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like just beginning that sense of that, like self-awareness and self-acceptance, that even you might just get to the end of the day and say, why was I angry today? Why do I feel disgruntled about something? And just then being able to go backwards in time and go, oh, was that happened? This thing happened, and just saying it's okay. Yeah, and just being accepting that self-acceptance that we're human and we have all these extraordinary emotions, and that sometimes they do get out of control or we don't express them properly, but eventually we get to acknowledge them. And with breath work, that as artists, and art therapists, we're all very visual, so we have an emotional landscape. And so art therapy, as with many therapies, works at it just smoothing out the very highs and the very deep lows, and just getting everyone sort of nice and tempered, and kind of building up that sort of sense of self control. Yeah.
So, what is your role in a class? Is it a facilitator? Are you working, um, and I'm sure you have individual people too, but how, I mean, are you having dialogue with your clients? Are you more quiet and just observing them? What is your role as you're doing this? I guess I'm trying to picture it.
It's all of the above, I think. In the art class, I do facilitate. I say, okay, today we're going to do this because of this, and I'll explain it. There are a group of nearly predominantly older women, so they like to chat. And I always make a joke that sometimes I get a word in. Um, but when, but they're really friendly and they're such a fun group. I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to come down and go, oh, you got to listen to me because I'm important. I just got to go, okay, we're going to do this. And what I do then is I actually join them and do the activity with them, and but I will observe them, and sort of look for interesting, I guess, clues. They don't, we don't have a process of reflection, but they do have journals which they put their artwork in, and then they're encouraged to go home and think about what it means to them and write about it. Um, when I'm working one on one, I'm very, very quiet. I very stand back. I give people the art equipment, and I allow them to then begin to talk and explore, and then just asking those type of questions that maybe dig a bit deeper and get them to think about what they're doing. And the whole time they might be writing or drawing or painting or expressing something, and that's really interesting. So I don't have all the answers. I believe they have the answers. They may not know that. So I might ask them about, or what do you think these black lines at the bottom of the page mean? What do you feel about them? And then we might explore that a little bit. But again, that takes time and that takes practice, and that comes back to your earlier question about how long. Yeah, how long do you need the therapy? So,
Well, sure. And you've just talked about individual and group, which is years ago I read a book called Group, and it was a memoir about a person going through group therapy that was who was reluctant to do it, and she found such a bond with these people, and a way to she felt comfortable sharing, and I think that is probably true of most group therapy sessions. And then, you've explained the side of the individual session being different and allowing that patient to, express themselves. And I think I think that's really key in this whole therapy. I'm a really big believer that health is more than just diet and exercise, that it's a combination of factors. It's our family life and our home environment. It's our finances, it's our career, it's the joy we bring, it's our social circles. I mean, there's a variety of things that contribute to our health, and that's why I feel like it's really important to talk about therapy, because what works for one might not work for others, and that is true of individual therapy versus group therapy. art therapy versus dog therapy, or so do you see people that go, gosh, I'm really glad I did this, and this is really, I'm sure you do. You have people that feel like they have, been peeled back like an onion, and they have gotten to the root of some of their some of their issues.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And particularly with the older women. Yeah, we've spent our lives kind of serving, you know. We we bought into the marriage and the family, and women do such an extraordinary job raising their children and, developing a family. I think the word phenomenon might be right here, but it's called the silver splinters. And I've just actually been looking at that recently, and it's about couples that separate in their 50s or later in life. And for women in particular, they're often at a greater financial disadvantage, even though, by law, everything's split 50-50. And so that's really, really interesting to see that cohort, if you like, of society and how they will explore. One of the great things about women is they will have a go. They'll have a go at, I mean, most of them have still have pets. So, I mean, one of my favorite memes of all time was, every dog's a therapy dog, but some of them are just working undercover. They're just,
I love that.
I used to be therapy dogs, yeah. So it's, you see people, and this connection they have with their pets is part of that therapy. And then and they'll join the yoga, they'll join Pilates, they'll do Tai Chi. And again, then they'll start talking, then they'll join their local community groups, and, they might find art group. And, one of the most vibrant groups we have in our community is the crocheting girls, they call themselves. And, there's the idea, and we also have something here called men's sheds, which have now developed, which is a government initiative. So they're great, they're sheds, they're, outdoor buildings, and men get together and make stuff because that's what men are good at. But it's the same as the crocheting girls. It's that what they're doing is just a little bit of, it's a kind of a distraction, because eventually what happens is people begin to talk, particularly men that don't normally explore their feelings. Yeah. So it's a wonderful government initiative.
No, sounds it. Do you have any positive outcomes or success stories without using names that you could share with our listeners?
I think just that building that confidence. Yeah. And I think personally, when, I received an email yesterday from a lady in the United States, and who was expressing her concerns about the state of the world. And just, she said to me, I've always done breath work. I've always worked on myself. But she finds that things are just getting overwhelming. And so she's gone and she's got one of my books, and, we've, she must have gone to the website, and we've hooked into the subscription system. And, and we had this really lovely chat backwards and forwards via email. And it was just nice to see even just her sort of being able, I think, just being recognized, just saying that somebody is saying, yeah, I get what you're going through, and I understand. Even though I'm on the other side of the world, our lives can be very similar in lots of ways. Yeah. So for me, I suppose success stories are the little things. Another lady contacted me from, she had lived in Ukraine and left because of the war. She's now working with blind children in Northern Ireland, and using, because she uses my books, but she also, every week in my newsletter, I give away a free art therapy activity, and it's linked to something. It'll be linked to somehow to a story that, I wanted to share. So for me, they're the success stories. Just the little influence that art therapy and mindfulness has been able to have in people's lives. Yeah,
Well, it's spreading out to other parts of the world.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I always ask guests, what is your SOS? What is one or two things that someone who's listening to this conversation can take away and besides calling you or emailing you or jumping in on a virtual class, what can they do to move the needle forward on their mental health?
I think for one of the things I always encourage people to do is something I call calming circles. And so if you get home and you're a bit stressed and you're perhaps a bit angry about something, is just grab a pen, the back of an envelope, or you can even do them on just with your finger and just simply draw circles. It doesn't matter the size, the shape. Well, they've got to be round in a sense. Doesn't matter if they overlap. It doesn't matter if you change colours. Doesn't matter if you colour them in afterwards. And just do it. Don't say, oh, I've got to feed the dogs. I've got to get dinner on. I've got to shower the kids. Don't. Just do it. Just spend a few minutes, some lovely long deep breaths, and just draw circles. And again, it's a form of doodling, but there's something very calming in that sense of drawing a circle and just that repetitive pattern. And I find personally, when I'm very, very stressed and very upset, the shapes are very small. And as I begin to relax and I begin to sort of de-escalate, they get bigger and they get more relaxed. And yeah, happier. Yeah. That is a tip. Try that.
Very interesting. That's great. I'll have to practice that. I used to doodle a lot more than I do now, but I think that's a great little exercise for people to try. And is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Oh, I would just encourage them to keep trying new things. If it doesn't work once, go back and give it a go again. Obviously, that not every form of therapy is going to meet your needs at that moment, but it might in 6 months or 12 months. It might be something that you're interested in. And even if if you hear all those doubts going, oh, I can't draw, oh, no one's going to want to listen to me, or, there's no good me joining that group because, I don't have anything to offer. You shut those doubts down and you give it a go, and because everyone feels like that, don't we? We all feel like, oh, I don't want to do this, and I'm not good enough, and what value do I have now? And so I'd shut them down really quickly and just give it a go, and just be open to the experiences.
Good advice. Really good advice. Now, I know you have a beautiful website, and you mentioned in our conversation that you have an app. Tell me about the app. Is that fairly new?
Yes, it's a brand new baby. Yeah, the tags are still left on. it's, and it's been I call it a labour of love because it was a little bit like giving birth. It was, yeah, I've never done anything before. I tend to get these great ideas and follow through with them just to see what happens. But I designed it all. I did all the artwork and I had this team put it together. I still don't know much about building apps, but I probably know a great deal more than I did 6 months ago.
I'm sure you do. Yes.
Yeah, it's right. It's based on my practical books, but I did explore new activities. It's available from Apple and on Android. One thing I do have is a great deal of respect for these the safety systems, the data control safety systems that are now in place, because at every step Apple knocked it back and said no, this needs to happen, and then we did fix that, and then that needs to happen, and then Google did a very similar process as well, quite different processes. So yeah, the app is available. It's the Art Therapy app, Mindful Arts Therapy. It's kind of only been released a week or two, but I'm getting some really nice feedback about it, which is really, really encouraging too. So yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm excited. I think that's exciting that you have so many different avenues, and you've got people could go on your website and get a coloring book, and they can reach out to you. They can work with you remotely or in person if they're in Australia. So, how can people get a hold of you if they want to reach you, Susan?
I think the website's probably the best. Yeah, probably the best. So mindfulartstherapy.com. Yeah. There's arts with an S because we cover all the different modalities. But I'm also particularly on Instagram and Facebook. and just go at Mindful Arts Therapy.
Yeah, I would be more than happy to. I always include how to reach you in the description of part of the podcast, and I'll also mention it again in the intro or the outro. So it's just been a pleasure talking to you today, Susan, and learning about art therapy and the benefits and how we can use therapy in conjunction with other therapy. And, it's worth just taking a step and trying it out.
Totally, yeah, yeah. Nothing else, you'll have some fun. Yeah,
And you might find a community as well.
yeah, yeah. Exactly right.
Well, thank you so much for being on SOS for Your Life, Emergency Wisdom for Everyday Life. And I do hope our paths cross again.
Me too.
Well, friends, sadly, that's all the time we have today. Thank you for joining me on SOS for Your Life, Emergency Wisdom for Everyday Life. Thank you, Susan, for joining me as well. During our conversation, we talked a lot about how therapy, especially art therapy, can be used both independently or in conjunction with other therapies, as well as the importance of developing a community. If you're doing artwork with a group or even a one-on-one session, it really does help you to work through a problem or to bring up emotions that you've pushed down or even trauma that you've had. So I think it's a fascinating topic, and I think we're going to hear a lot more about art therapy. You can find out more about what she does on Mindful Arts Therapy or by visiting her website, mindfulartstherapy.com. And just a reminder on how you can support this podcast. If you have a question you want answered or you want to leave me a review, feel free. Your question might be answered sometime in the near future. Feel free to follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. If you're interested in health coaching or breathwork sessions, feel free to reach out to me. And if you'd like to be added to my weekly email newsletter, feel free to send me an email with your email, and I'd be glad to add you. And so until next time, take care, and I'll see you soon.